Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a question that I get a lot from people that have never had insurance before. What is renter's insurance? Why do I need it? What does it cover? Why does the apartment complex tell me that I have to have it? How much is something like this going to cost? So what are the basics of renter's insurance? Well, renter's insurance is just a word that we use in the insurance industry to describe the type of coverage that you need when you don't own the building or the apartment or the condominium that you live in. You don't own the walls, you don't own the building, you don't own the lumber that the building's built of. However, what you do own are the things that are inside the home or the dwelling, I guess is the official insurance term. So renter's insurance is broken down into just a few main parts and pieces that we're going to get to talking about in more detail here in just a minute. But hopefully what you'll be looking for is liability insurance and personal property insurance. Those are the two main pieces. And then there's a few other little things that come with renter's insurance that just get thrown in that you probably will never use, but every company has it and is providing it for you. So it is what it is. So apartment complexes often in their lease agreements have in there that you must maintain renter's insurance. And the main reason that they're doing that is because with renter's insurance comes liability insurance. If you throw a raging party for you and all your neighbors and you cause damage to someone or something, or maybe the general area of the apartment complex gets damaged, or maybe there's just something that happens because you live there. You did something that you shouldn't have done, and someone can sue you for that, or could potentially sue the apartment complex because of what you did. That is why the apartment complex often makes you purchase it. They also want to make sure that you, as a person that rents from them, aren't coming back to them and saying, hey, wait a minute, I want my stuff covered because there was a bunch of rain that fell through the roof and your roof was faulty and damaged all my stuff. It's your responsibility. You got to pay for that. Well, your renter's insurance policy is really what's set up to cover that. And again, we'll talk about those details here in just a minute. At the end of the day, the apartment complex is basically just trying to make sure that if you do something wrong, no one can come after them and sue them for it. They want you to take responsibility for your own action, which is probably a good thing. So what does it actually cover? Well, there's two main parts of a renter's insurance policy. We'll call it Section 1 and Section 2. All right, within each of those sections, there's a couple different things that fall into it. Under Section 1, you're gonna see on every renter's insurance policy that you may purchase or are looking at purchasing, there'll be a couple things that you have to designate. One of those is what they call Coverage C. Coverage C, you can remember, is just personal property. This is how much in value do I have in my wardrobe, in electronics, televisions, furniture, anything that you have brought into the home, anything you brought into the apartment, you need to have covered under this personal property limit. And so oftentimes the insurance company is going to ask you, hey, how much stuff do you have inside your apartment? And you'll be like, I don't know what this stuff is valued at. Really, you probably don't want to have less than about $15,000 worth of coverage on this portion, just in case you buy more stuff or someone gives you something that you need to replace. Also know, the keyword there being replace, this is often at replacement cost. So just because you have a couch that's 10 years old that your parents gave you, well, that's not probably worth very much. But if you had to go out and buy a brand new couch, what would it cost you? So if your parents gave you this really high-end couch that no longer fit in their den, but it fits in your place, and you had to go out and purchase something just like it, it might cost quite a bit of money. So you have to take into account it is the replacement value of all of your items that you are trying to accommodate here. You also may have purchased a lot of your stuff at discounts. You always should value everything at full retail when you are looking at personal property. That way, if you did have a loss, if something happened, you'd be able to go and recover that stuff right away and not have to worry about finding all those fancy discounts that you had on all your items before. The other piece in Section 1 is what they call Coverage D, and that is loss of use. What is loss of use? Loss of use is when something happens to the apartment. Maybe there was a fire, maybe there was a break-in, maybe there was a water pipe that burst within the apartment, and you no longer are able to live there. Well, loss of use is often a much smaller amount of coverage, but it will pay for you to rent somewhere separate while you're fixing up what's inside your current apartment. Well, it's unlivable. So loss of use, it's important. It's kind of a throw-in coverage in the apartment world, but it is something that's important, and it is on just about every renter's insurance policy that you may look at. So in general, something I want to make sure you understand, Section 1 is all about property, and property is the main portion of what you're buying when it comes to a renter's policy. I mentioned it before, but if someone breaks in and steals stuff, if there's a fire that starts in the apartment building, even if it starts not in your unit and comes over to you, or a water pipe that bursts in the ceiling, in the wall, you may live in a very large apartment complex, and damage can happen somewhere in the building, not in your unit, and your stuff could be damaged. That's why a renter's policy is hyper important if you are living inside of an apartment complex or building, or even if you're renting a single family home. Yeah, there are a lot of times you may be able to rent a house. You would need a renter's policy for that house. Again, not covering the roof, the shingles, the walls, any of that, but covering all of the stuff that is yours that you own inside of it. Now, moving on to Section 2, this is liability insurance. So the liability section is really what that apartment complex and other people that have interest in you would want you to have. And that is a liability protection. This is the slip, trip, fall, if you have that party and someone gets hurt, if someone comes in to work on something, maybe you have someone to come into the apartment and maybe you haven't put all of your clothes away in the hamper and they trip over something and bust up their face or their knee. That is liability insurance. You are liable for the environment that is that apartment. Liability insurance is considered coverage E, so coverage E, and it's usually sold in increments of $100,000. I don't recommend you get less than 300 would be the magic number. So it's sold in increments of 100,000, but you really need to have $300,000 of coverage at least. Now, also under the Section 2 liability is coverage F. You can see a pattern here. I'll talk to you about A and B, why that's not there, but coverage F is going to be medical payments to others. Again, if you have a guest in the apartment or have someone that's come into your home that you are renting and they get hurt, there is usually a small amount of medical coverage that they will be able to file for on your insurance policy. So that will protect you if you mainly have a service person come in, a service worker, if someone's fixing an appliance, or if someone's fixing a window that's busted out, or just general maintenance of the facility or of the apartment, and you have someone get hurt because of your stuff, that is where medical payments to others is going to come into play. If you're going through the ABCs in your head, you're saying, well, where's A and where's B? Well, sections and coverages A and B don't exist on a renter's policy because those are talking about the primary building. So if you owned a home, you would have coverage A, and then other structures. So maybe there's like a shed in the backyard or something like that, and that would be coverage B. So those two things aren't relative to the renter's insurance policy, therefore they're not on here. So that's a general overview of what it covers, but how much does all of this cost? Well, before we get there, let's talk about maybe what else you may have to consider when looking to purchase a renter's insurance policy. You're gonna need to understand what your deductible is. And on a renter's insurance policy, that is usually purchased in increments of 100. So if you don't have a lot of money saved up in the background, then having a lower deductible may be the right option for you. Therefore, out of pocket, if you had someone come in and steal all your stuff, you'd only have to pay $100 of that, for instance. You can always move this deductible up as you do build some reserve cash, so that you basically self-insure your stuff to a certain level. But deductible is important. So the deductible is going to greatly affect the price of the policy. In general, however, the price of these policies should be, for the most part, if you're just starting out, you have a very minimal amount of coverage. It could be anywhere between $10 and $20 per month. Yeah, very affordable stuff. It really depends on the level of liability coverage that you want and the level of personal property that you have. Every apartment building that you may move into in a larger city or even a smaller city should always require you to have a renter's insurance policy. Even if, and if you've made it all the way through this video, congratulations, but even if you aren't being forced to buy a renter's insurance policy, I definitely recommend you have one. You may get a cross-policy discount with an auto insurance policy. So renter's insurance, renter's insurance, renter's insurance. Lots of good stuff in there. Now, one little bonus tip on renter's insurance. It's not going to appear on the page or anything. Renter's insurance allows you to schedule larger expensive items on the policy. So if you are renting an apartment and you maybe are buying a ring for somebody that you're getting ready to be engaged to, or maybe you've just received a ring that someone gave you and you want to take the value of that ring and put it somewhere to make sure that if you lose it or something happens to it, it's covered. Sometimes you can schedule those high value jewelry items on the renter's policy for a very minimal cost. Call your insurance agent to figure out if that may work for you in your situation. So renter's insurance is kind of like where most of us start with buying property coverage or insurance in general. If you don't have it or are considering it or are being told you must have it, this should be a resource for you, and I hope that you will bookmark this, save it, like, subscribe, all the things. Help us out here at this channel. We do look forward to answering the next question that you have very soon. Thanks for watching.